It's a Thursday crossover, Lions and Falcons, Sunday at Ford Field.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday crossover brought to you by PrizePicks. Matt Dery, Locked On Lions. Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons. Here we go, Detroit and Atlanta. It's going to be a good football game on Sunday. The Lions, everybody's darlings this offseason, off to a 1-1 start. And all of a sudden, the Falcons, the NFC South is hot. 2-0 Falcons. We'll get into everything that has to do with Sunday's game momentarily right here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen, checking us out wherever you get your podcast. This crossover Thursday episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Follow Aaron on Twitter at FalcFans and me, Matt Dery, at Dery Speaks. Aaron Freeman, what's going on, man? It's got to feel good for you and for Falcon fans, a 2-0 start, right?
Yeah, the Falcons are the team that finishes games strong. That's been what the story this season, which is a new wrinkle on the Atlanta Falcons. They're known for finishing less than strong, for blowing some fourth quarter leads. And now it's all about getting those fourth quarter leads and keeping them. And that's been what's powering them these last two games. And I think this week is going to be a very big road test for the Atlanta Falcons. I know Falcon fans, I've spoken to a couple of Falcon fans. They're a little jealous at the love the Lions have gotten all off season long, and they're wondering like, why not us, right? You know, and basically my response to those folks have been, hey, you beat the Super Bowl champs in primetime, you'll get some love too, like the Lions did in that Week 1 opener. But you know, fans are fans, and logic kind of goes out the window sometimes, and it's always the us versus the world mentality. And so I think for a lot of Falcon fans, they would love to go into Detroit this week and get that win and get maybe a little bit more national buzz and get the Falcons off to their 3-0 start. And, you know, history kind of tells you maybe that's the case, because the last time the Falcons were 2-0 was back in 2017, and they beat the Packers at home in Week 2. And I think they went on the road the following week and beat the Lions to go 3-0. And so last week they beat the Packers at home to go 2-0. And now they're going on the road, and hopefully they can beat the Lions.
Is that the top storyline? Let's get into storylines. I want to tell you a little bit and your listeners about the injury situation here, but is the storyline just finishing games, fourth quarters? And I know your quarterback, he's disappears the first three, but in the fourth, he seems to be pretty decent.
Yeah, I think that's the big storyline. It's really, can the Falcons put together a complete game? And I think, you know, some of their topics this week for big stories is related around their injuries. Are they going to be able to get Cordero Patterson back this week? He's been kind of a healthy scratch the last two games. Jeff Okudah, potential revenge game for him, getting his first action of the regular season. I'm skeptical about him playing this week. I think they're going to probably try to ramp him up and maybe get him going next week in the London game against the Jaguars. But those are kind of the big storylines for this week.
Yeah, here in Detroit, storyline is just, it's a mash unit right now. And it's such a cliche to use that term, and I don't love it, but it's true. Lions went from, like you said, media darlings all off season. People loved it. The Dan Campbell love, going to Kansas City and win. Whether you believe there was an asterisk or not, with no Kelsey, no Chris Jones, the Lions were impressive and physical and ran the clock out, ran the ball down Kansas City's throats to ice that game. Then this past weekend, right there with Seattle, played a good football game for the most part, but too many mistakes in the turnovers. But the storyline now heading into it, this Atlanta game is the amount of injuries that this team has. David Montgomery may not play. Halapoulivaati Vaitai, who's clearly their best right guard. I know they like Graham Glasgow as sort of a sixth man, but Vaitai is going to be out. You lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, James Houston, one of their top pass rushers. Amon-Ra St. Brown, likely all week, is probably not going to practice much with this toe injury. So a lot of injuries, a lot of concern that, especially with a short week going into next week with Green Bay, that all of a sudden Falcons are playing well. What if the Lions drop this game and then have to play Green Bay at Lambeau in a short week? And you went from going, oh, we're going to be 3-1 or 4-0 to, could it end up really being 1-3? Because this turns out to be a much more dangerous game. You mentioned before about Patterson and Okudah. It's interesting for Jeff to come back. I'm assuming he would want to come back and play in this game, and like you say, have a little bit of a revenge game, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting, and we're going to monitor Okudah's status in the practice report all week. But what's been interesting with Cordero Patterson missed a big chunk of training camp. Mike Hughes, former Lion, also missed a big chunk of training camp. And Hughes, before he got his first action week 2, but he was a full participant in practice for week 1 and then again in week 2. Patterson didn't get his first full participation until last week, so we're expecting him to get that this week. And so it does seem like the Falcons' methodology has been, we're going to ramp you up if you missed a huge chunk of the summer, and that's basically Okudah missed pretty much the entire month of August. And so it's like 2 weeks of practice to try to work you into game shape. That's part of the reason why I'm not expecting Okudah to play, that even if he does practice fully this week, it will be more of a week 1 of a 2-week ramp up to get him ready to play in that London game.
So let me follow up on Okudah because the fans want to know. He was having a decent camp, right? And then he got hurt, which has kind of been par for the course for him. But thank goodness it wasn't as more serious. I think at first when he got carted off, right, they were thinking it could have been long term.
Yeah, that's exactly how it went down. But we got some pretty good news that he was going to be back early in the season. And so we're just kind of waiting. What does early mean? Arthur Smith is very nebulous with his injury reports. He's just, but so it may be this week, it may be next week, it may be the week after. We're just kind of waiting to see. But yeah, when we get into the matchups, the lack of Jeff Okudah has been kind of a glaring issue for this defense. It feels like this defense has made major strides from previous years, but there's one weakness, and it's that cornerback spot opposite AJ Terrell. And we're just kind of waiting for Jeff Okudah to come back to solidify that spot, because Trey Flowers was really struggled last week against Green Bay. Didn't struggle as much against Carolina in week 1, but that's, I think, mostly owed to Carolina's passing attack not being very good and not being able to exploit that. So, I know the Lions are dealing with their own injuries at the receiver position, but, this passing attack, I think, certainly could find ways to exploit that weakness if Jeff Okudah is not back this week.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about the secondary in Detroit with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson now out with a torn pectoral muscle. That means more time for Tracy Walker, who was a former starter and certainly a secondary teammate of Jeffrey Okudah's for years here in Detroit. So it's nice to have some depth. This has been a Lions team, as you know, Aaron, you and I have done plenty of these crossovers where we've talked about just no depth, no talent. The roster has been replenished and there is depth. So you're talking about a former starter in Tracy Walker coming in at the safety spot and taking over for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And Tracy wasn't playing much because Brian Branch, the rookie, has had such a great start. So that's something to keep an eye on. If a Walker or Kirby Joseph, who also is a little bit banged up, get hurt in this game Sunday, that's a big drop-off. There was not a big drop-off after CJ got hurt. But if that goes down and another injury in the secondary, then you're talking about a little bit of a drop-off. But Detroit's defense, 1 week against Mahomes, and I know he didn't have Travis Kelce, they really look good. But 2 sacks in 2 games, or excuse me, 1 sack in 2 games, and that's it. They've got to get the pass rush going, and it'll be interesting to see how the Falcons, kind of block for Ritter and do their thing. But we'll get into that coming up momentarily. Matchups is the next thing we want to get into. What's Aaron thinking? What I'm thinking in terms of key matchups to keep in mind. We will do that coming up next right here on Locked On Lions and Locked On Falcons, a Thursday crossover. We told you before that it's brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Let's dive into it. It's simple. If you want to play a really, really fun daily fantasy game that it's all about the numbers and it's projections. It's not you against anybody else. It's you against the PrizePicks projections, where you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. You're going to win a lot of money if you feel good about it. So check it out. Testing our skills on PrizePicks for Aaron and me has been a lot of fun this football season. You can turn $10 into $250 with our friends at PrizePicks. This week, talk about this game, a Bijan Robinson number, 60 yards, 70 yards. You want to go more or less, something like that? Probably more with the way how the Lions defense has been playing and the way Robinson's been. You could do that at PrizePicks.com. You go there now, PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And we're also brought to you today by our friends at Jase Medical. That is right. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why our friends at Jase Medical offers the Jase case. Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. You'll actually, with Jase Medical, you'll have that access and the meds right in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy meds and delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. All right, Thursday crossover, Matt and Aaron with you. Locked On Falcons, Locked On Lions. Thursday crossover, of course, brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Daily fantasy that is so much fun. All right, Aaron. So matchup-wise, you look at this team, these two teams. What catches your eyes? They go head-to-head.
Well, I think, if I'm in the room with either Ben Johnson, Arthur Smith, Dan Campbell, I'm kind of looking at similar matchups for both of these teams. That I think you look at each team, and I know in Atlanta, we just talked about they have one kind of weaker corner than the other in Trey Flowers. Even if Jeff Okudah does come back, you hope that's going to be better, but it would be his first game back. And so you would probably want to attack him. And I'm sure Lions fans have some strong feelings about how good Jeff Okudah is,
Yes.
Versus AJ Terrell. And I think it's similar to the Detroit Lions, right? I watched the Seattle game and I'm watching Jerry Jacobs and I'm like, yeah, go after Jerry Jacobs if you're Arthur Smith in this offense and just target that guy all day. And then you have both teams with 2 dynamic running backs, 2 rookies, first-round picks, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. And you would love to get those guys isolated one-on-one against some of these linebackers. Caden Ellis for the Falcons, Troy Anderson's dealing with a concussion. He may not play. Nate Landman stepped up nicely for him last week, played really good against the run, but still maybe is a little bit of a question mark in coverage. And you'd love that matchup between Jahmyr Gibbs against one of those guys. And the same, of course, with Bijan Robinson going up against guys like Alex Anzalone or Derek Barnes. And so I feel like if either team should just kind of spam those matchups and just go after whichever weakness. And I think the team that kind of best executes that ability probably gets the leg up in this game.
No, I think you bring up a lot of great points. I'm looking at the quarterbacks on both sides, and I think for the Lions matching up, look, they've seen the film. We've all seen the film. We've all seen the 3-headed monster, if Patterson's healthy, that the Falcons would have in the backfield with Algier as well and Bijan. To me, the Lions have got to take those guys away and make Desmond Ridder, earn his money and be a guy that's a difference maker. I mean, I've seen some tweets. I'm following you. I'm seeing what's going on. And it's like, fans calling for, why is Ridder still playing? Let's get the backup in. Let's, all these things. And then the fourth quarter, Desmond Ridder is now turning into, Steve Bartkowski, Chris Miller. I'm dropping some Falcon love there for you. Michael Vick. I don't know. So I think early in the game, the Lions getting pressure on Ridder and rattling a young quarterback is a huge matchup. It's that D line. It's the guy. It's Aaron Glenn, like you said, against Arthur Smith, who's such a great play caller, in just designing some things, because the Lions defense last week, like you said, Geno Smith had all day. Jerry Jacobs got picked on, but again, Jerry Jacobs needs some help. You got to have some pressure at some point. One sack all last game, and that came from basically Geno holding the ball too long and losing 17 yards at the end of the game when he could have just easily thrown the ball away. Yeah. Anzalone got him. But we're talking about a really good defensive front led by Aiden Hutchinson that's banged up right now. But still, they were counting on some of these guys to really sack the quarterback. And instead, Hutch doesn't have a sack. And you've got 1 in 2 games. So to me, that would be a big matchup, is taking away that run early, forcing Ridder into 3rd and longs and selling out almost against the run and making him throw. What kind of letter grade are you giving this kid so far? A year and 2 games in.
I mean, if I'm just judging off the first 3 quarters, it's probably a C-. Fourth quarter, it's like a A, and so I guess it balances out to be something in the B range. But yeah, I think, stopping the run is going to be hard. No one has been able to stop the Falcons run game really this year, last year, they're, I think, behind Baltimore with the second longest active streak of 100+ yard rushing games, with 17, I think the number is up to now. So, or no, I guess it's 19, because okay, I'll have to double check that stat. But
Still, that's a big number.
yeah, and so, but you're right. Like, the Falcons' offensive line has not been very good in pass protection this year. And so if you can stop the run and get your ability to pin your ears back, if this Lions offense can get off to a fast start and make the Falcons a lot more one-dimensional earlier in the game, like, I don't know if the Lions defense is going to be the unit that's going to be able to shut down the Falcons run game. So I really think it's going to be on the Lions offense to get off to a fast start at home. Hopefully, for Lions fans' sake, the Falcons have been slow starters at home, so you would assume that they'll probably also be slow starters offensively on the road. We'll have to sort of see about that, and that's, I think, going to be their best formula to potentially add some sack totals. If you can get Aiden Hutchinson up against Caleb McGarry off that right side, and him using that spin move, I think that could be very effective at padding the Lions sack totals this year.
It's interesting because I said earlier about the backup quarterback, I was thinking it was Mariota. It's not. It's Taylor Heineke, who I know is probably popular down there a little bit, and at times fans call for him. But I don't know. Week one when the Lions played the Chiefs, you just knew Mahomes was going to make some plays. He's the best there is. This past week, you figured, as I like to call him, future head coach Aaron Glenn would have made an adjustment after last season when Geno and the Seahawks put up a 48 burger on him, and then instead go for 37 this week, and you can't stop them in overtime. They go right down the field and get a touchdown. You don't even touch the ball. So there's a little heat right now, again, on Glenn. Like, all right, what do you do against Bijan? That's all anybody's talking about. And of course, like you said, the Robinson and Gibbs comparisons. Bijan's touching it, right, in all different situations. So is Gibbs to an extent, but if David Montgomery doesn't play this week, as he's got a calf issue or thigh issue, it'll be interesting to see if Gibbs gets carries between the tackles and they bell cow him. They've got Craig Reynolds, as I like to call him. Come on, Craig Reynolds. And also Bam Knight is coming off the practice squad. So it'll be interesting to see how they utilize their backs against that Falcon run defense. How's Atlanta been against the run?
They struggled in week one against the Panthers. The Panthers, I think, put up 150+ yards rushing on them, just kind of smashing them in the mouth. They did a little bit better against the Packers last week, but I think some of that was just owed to the Packers with just much better moving the ball through the air with their sort of quick passing game and designing some stuff. And, not having Aaron Jones last week, I think probably led to them leaning a little bit more on their passing attack than A.J. Dillon, who's not off to the best start. So, it's a kind of a we'll see with the Falcons run defense. The sample size is not big enough to draw any strong conclusions, but when a team was committed to running the football against them like the Panthers were in week one, they were very effective doing so.
Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons, Matt Dery, Locked On Lions. It's our Thursday crossover brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. When we come back, let's get into how the Falcons would win, how the Lions will win, and also some predictions. Fans got on me for predicting a loss against the Chiefs. And then last week I predict a win. Of course they lose. So I'm 0 for 2. So we'll see where this all goes coming up next. First, though, we got to talk about our friends at Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look good. All right. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts, the stretch khaki pants are a lot of fun, and they feel good. And they got that slim fit through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. All right. You're going to go to Lululemon. You're going to spend a ton of money on these pants and shorts, but they're not as good. They're just not as Bird Dogs. They do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit better because the regular shorts are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs, they fixed this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Bird Dogs are functional for any occasion, whether it's golf, date night, evening out, pool, whatever it is. Bird Dogs are a lot of fun. And you're going to get that free gift, the free gift water bottle, when you make a purchase. It is simple. You go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL, enter promo code LockedOnNFL at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. We're all carrying these water bottles around. Why not have the cool one, the Bird Dogs one? That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. All right, here we go. So, what's it going to take Aaron Freeman for the Falcons to get a win? The first road win of the year, first road game of the year with back-to-back home wins against Carolina and Green Bay. How do you think they win this game?
Yeah, I think, we've been pushing for a fast start for the Falcons. The first two games, they haven't gotten that. So hopefully, I think they get off to a fast start on the road. That's not usually the formula. Usually, especially with a young quarterback, you tend to be a little bit better at home than you are away. So we need kind of Desmond Ritter to buck the trend, I guess, in that and help this offense get going. But I do think running the football, generating some explosive plays off of play action, something that the Seahawks were able to do successfully last week. Falcons can kind of repeat that formula. And if we can get Ritter to avoid some of the turnover worthy plays, right? He's only thrown one interception this year. But he's leading the league according to Pro Football Focus in turnover worthy plays. He's had a couple of interceptions that were dropped the last 2 weeks. So we need to see him play a clean game. And if he can do that, I think that's going to help this Falcon team because, I do expect the Lions to put up some points in this game. And if they want to keep pace with that, one turnover here or there could mean the difference in winning and losing this game. And the Lions know that from what happened last week against the Seattle Seahawks. And hopefully the Falcons will also get maybe a boost to their special teams. That may be another thing that could be the difference in winning this game. And if Cordero Patterson comes back, he can provide that boost on kickoff returns and whatnot. So if I'm going with a prediction, you talk about Lions fans getting on you. I got a lot of grief for picking the Packers last week.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to pick the Lions again this week. I'm just going to have to deal with the turmoil in the comments section, but I need to believe it. I'll believe it when I see it with the Falcons on the road. First, I think this is a very winnable game for the Falcons. I think it's going to be a close game in the fourth quarter, and that's where the Falcons have shined these last 2 weeks, and maybe they make it 3 in a row. But I'll probably roll with the Lions winning this one 28-24.
Interesting. How did the Lions win? Well, number one, and I know this, I was kind of scouring some sports talk down there and then also checking out your pod. I know the fans want more of Kyle Pitts. I know it goes back to last year when fantasy owners are like, where is he? Because he is so talented. The Lions cannot let him have his breakout day and go off. And the Lions last week could not guard the tight end, Will Dissly and others. So we're talking about a specimen in Pitts. So the Lions are going to win. He cannot have a big day. And I just get a sense that would be a nice little, building block for Ritter and for confidence early if he's finding his tight end. So that would be something I think the Lions need to do. I also think, like you said, fast start. I mean, last week the crowd was into it. It was the home opener, standing room only, fourth largest crowd in Ford Field history. And Seattle got the football. Aaron went right down the field and scored with ease, a touchdown. So I'm not saying that deflated the balloon, but this week to get this fan base rev back up, I think the Lions need to make a statement early and impose their will on the Falcons. And if Ritter continues to struggle early on, the Lions have to take advantage of that. So I think that's going to be big. And I think Jared Goff and that passing attack just have to continue to do their thing. If David Montgomery doesn't play, and it's questionable to doubtful here, that puts a lot of pressure on a rookie running back that's a little undersized, and Reynolds and others to do the thing that David Montgomery just seems like, all right, he stopped for 1 or 2, yet somehow gets 4 or 5. I've been impressed with him so far as a Lion. Not that I didn't see him in Chicago. We all did, but I think that's going to be a big loss if he's not there. So those are a couple things that I think would give me make me feel good about Detroit. And Lions have to play with discipline too. I knew it last week. I saw Alex Kemp was our ref last week, and I was like, this guy throws flags like crazy. And here the Lions have a couple cheap shots, a couple of whistles afterwards, a couple mistakes. Lions got to clean that up. But I'm with you. I'll take the Lions to win. I think it'll be about 27-17. I think they've played 2 very tight games that have come down to the end. Not that I don't think that is going to happen again. It might this week, but I think Detroit will win by 10. And I think getting to 2-1, having to go on the road, are the Falcons really going to go 3-0, Aaron? I mean, it's possible, right? I mean, do you think they're that good to be a 3-0 team? Or I'm sure Falcon fans would have taken 2-1 after 3 games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're catching the Lions, as we talked at the top of the show, like they're a little beat up this week. So I don't think you're going to get the best version of the Detroit Lions. And I think that's they kind of didn't get the best version of the Green Bay Packers due to some of those injuries with like Aaron Jones and David Bakhtiari and then Christian Watson being out last week. And, if Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't play this week, that's a huge benefit to the Falcons. And, as you mentioned, they may be down 2 starters on their offensive line. So I think those are all variables that favor the Falcons to potentially get off to that 3-0 start.
What were your expectations? Did you have a win total that you kind of had circled?
Yes. The comments have gone crazy because I had the Falcons starting the season 1-3. And if they get off to a 3-0 start, then, that blows that prediction out of the water.
But how many wins total for the year did you think they were going to?
I had them starting slow and finishing strong. So I had them getting up to like 10 wins this season.
Oh, did you really? Oh, wow. All right. So
winning.
They need to lay off of you then. 10 wins? That's pretty good.
Yeah, right?
Although, and I guess it's the same thing with me. I had the Lions winning 10, 11 games, but I also looked at the division. I'm sure you thought the same thing. Now, all of a sudden, the NFC South is like beating up on the NFC North. Like the Bucks beat the Bears. You guys beat the Packers. It's still very early. That's the thing,
We'll see.
No, we will. All right, Aaron, great stuff, my friend. Appreciate the time, and let's have some fun this Sunday.
Absolutely.
There he is. Aaron Freeman, Locked On Falcons. Matt Dery, Locked On Lions. This has been the Thursday crossover brought to you by PrizePicks. Again, follow us on social media. Subscribe to our programs, Locked On Lions and Locked On Falcons, on our Locked On Lions and Locked On Falcons YouTube channels. Friday show tomorrow for both of us as well.